Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back. We are back at 2021. Thanks so much for joining us, the guys who have joined us. And if you haven't come here before, thanks so much for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, head to YouTube and head to Facebook, like and subscribe. That way you don't miss any of my great artists. Also, if you head over to YouTube, there's a whole bunch of my episodes there that you can watch all the way from the start when we had Michael Lovett. And we finished last year with Louis Darsville. Now, don't be afraid to get on here, ask questions, because this stream is your stream to access and have access to these incredible artists that I'm getting on. And you don't want to miss Willie Murillo, and get him while he's got him, because literally, not a normal year, his time is so precious, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we're very, very lucky. So don't go anywhere. Let's get the stream started. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have Willie Murillo with us. He is, what can we say about him? He's one of LA's finest trumpet players, one of the busiest trumpet players. He's not only the incredible trumpet player, though, he's also a vocalist. He's also an arranger. What doesn't this man do? And he gets to play on a normal year. He works with the best of the best. So, without further ado, let's get Willie on. How you doing, Willie?
Hello, Internet.
Hey, it's so good. Thanks so much for giving your time to be here. It's so good to have you on.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited that you're doing this, man. It's really fun. I wish I had this kind of stuff when I was 17 or 18. A lot of times now I just put on podcasts and things, and I just hear about people's lives all day, which is really cool. So I'm really thankful that you're doing this, and I'm honored that you asked me to do it. Thank you.
Oh, yes, by all means. We've chatted a little bit off screen about it, but obviously not everyone got to hear it. So could you just give us a little bit, on a normal year, you're very busy. So just give us a little bit of what's happening at the moment in your life. I mean, I know it's not a great time to be talking about, but I think it's good for our viewers to understand what's going on at the present time.
Yeah, well, perhaps some of you have heard there's a little virus going around the world. It's called COVID-19. No, you're right. During a normal time, I'm a super duper busy guy, not because that's not a bragging statement by any means. I have 4 kids and a beautiful wife who's a singer, and I produce, her stuff. And I am kind of ADD guy. I love to do different stuff. I get bored, so I love practicing and playing, gigs. I don't do a lot of live gigs anymore.
All right.
It's just kind of one of those things that I think sort of hipper and younger guys are kind of doing all the good live work. I do a lot.
Hey, you're one of the best dressed trumpet players in the world. That's basically.
That's on my sweater with the W on.
Yeah.
But so I don't do a ton of live work. Some of that is by choice. When you have 4 kids and a lot of projects at home, and I have a really great home studio. I love working out of here. It's like sort of my dream come true. I've dreamt this. This is my 4th house where I've had a home studio in.
Yeah.
And each one I've upgraded and gotten better and bigger. And this is the one. And so when I can walk down in my pajamas and like be in front of video editing or mixing or recording trumpet parts or something all day, I love it, because it's just, my kids walk in and it sort of drives me bananas, but I also love it as a father, where I'm able to say, I love you. I'm available to you at any time of the day. So my 4-year-old is walking in here like every 5 seconds. And sometimes I'm like, it drives me bananas, but it's the life I want. So, I love doing, I'm equipped to do everything that I enjoy and that I do for work. So I sing in the studio, I play, I produce, I can do tracking sessions for other people and
amazing,
and so on and so forth. So, so I work out of here a lot. Like you mentioned, I do some singing for television and film and producing, and anybody that's out there that, is wondering what the term producing means, in my concept of it. It's kind of, anything from start to finish, from conception to completion of a project. So somebody calls and they'll say, hey, uh, would you be willing to write, a big band arrangement? Or we have this TV cue that needs to sound like a German waltz and we need, strings or something. Or, hey, could you put together a children's choir for this movie cue? It needs to be 30 seconds long and singing in French, or, some kind of oddball request or something. And so that's what gives me the greatest high. And as much as I'm a total trumpet nerd and I love practicing, my greatest love is really like the producing process, where I get to flex all of those creative muscles,
Yeah.
and I'll probably, on every project I do, there's something I don't know how to do, or there's something I've never really done before. So, I'm always getting better at like mixing
Yeah.
and mastering, and oh, here's a better way to track a cello, or we try
Yeah.
this, or so anyway, so that's kind of my normal like everyday life. And then again, I said I have 4 kids, and they're all like at these great ages, and the older ones are requiring a lot of attention, which is super fun. My 13-year-old, 14-year-old tomorrow actually, is, he's a fantastic football player. He's a great athlete. So I'm always out there with throwing the ball. And my 15-year-old just got her learner's permit, and so we're driving.
That. Scary times.
Yeah, and 10-year-old like super into kind of everything. And hey, do you want to draw together? And my 4-year-old, man, that kid is like, it's 2 speeds, full throttle or asleep. So there's a lot. And and then I also have created something, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, called the Practice app.
Yep.
So I do all this music work, all this producing work, and then I've learned that I have a real, not maybe, I don't know if a knack is the right word, but I'm a desire. Like I love the film editing thing.
Yep.
And so it's it's sort of like writing music.
Yep.
It's like you get all the film. In fact, I'm doing a little commercial. My sister-in-law just created a new business for herself. It's like a home cooked meals, and she freezes them and sends them. And so we're doing like a little commercial. Got it yesterday. So that's fun for me to go, I have control of how this looks from moment one, the camera angles, or the way something is going to get recorded or written. Like when I write something in music, I know that this is going to go under dialogue, and this frequency is going to be heard. And so it's kind of exciting to do those kinds of things, with like the moment somebody calls and they go, hey, we got this project, it's for this TV show, or hey, it's for my personal record, or hey, could you shoot a video for this vintage blah blah, and it's kind of all the same to me. It's like very compositional.
Yep.
So that's how my brain works, and that's what I love to do, and I get to do that right here in my home studio. Obviously, I'm other places, but I haven't been out of this house to another studio. I did one project, and we were all masked up maybe 5 months ago. But other than that, I've not been to another studio since I think February of 2020.
I mean, that's crazy, right? So surely, like on a normal year, what would your weekly studio visit be?
On a normal year, and it also goes through cycles, like up and down cycles. So I might be, let's say, at Warner's or Capitol or something like that for a project, and it could literally just be, hey, come play third trumpet in a trumpet section.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're just there for 3 hours or 6 hours or something. And then maybe I'm not there for a week.
Yeah. Right.
And then all of a sudden I'm there for like 5 days in a row because I'm producing something, X studio. It could be a small studio. And that's the thing about LA. There's so many good studios. My favorite, as cliche as it sounds, is Capitol. It's probably like Abbey Road or something like that. It's just, it's historical. The room sounds incredible. The Steve Genowick, who's always my favorite engineer, those guys the teams are top notch. Everybody is just beautiful. They're accommodating. You feel like what you're doing is important work.
Yep.
and it's, it's going to be quality. And so, I could be there for not 3 weeks or something, or a month maybe. Then all of a sudden I'm there for like 6 days in a row or 4 days in a row from like 8 a.m. to midnight or 1 a.m. or something. And then you're not there. And then all of a sudden you get called again and somebody's like, hey, can you come in? And like, I've had times when somebody came, I had to do like a vocal session. My wife normally does like vocal sessions. And sometimes I'll slum it with her doing like section vocal sessions or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they'll all make fun of me because I'm not a real singer. I always call myself a fake singer.
Hey, I've got evidence that you are a real singer.
I'm a fake singer, so let's not tell anybody what happened here today, So that's kind of a normal thing. But then, so like, let's say I'm out and about at a studio and I'll come home and, obviously family, and we'll see what's happening. And then, when everybody goes to bed, I get to be in my home studio and go like, oh, I better catch up on this. Or I didn't play any trumpet today. Let me bang, some stuff out. Let me just do a mouthpiece routine for 45 minutes, or let me, do whatever, or play some, play along Abersolds or something, And so I love that I have this home base. But you're usually out and about. But I have at the place I'm at with my career, a lot of the times I'm able to coerce clients like, hey, let me do this at my house, otherwise I'm gonna probably have to charge a little bit more to be out and about for 3 days or 5 days. And they go, great, and yeah.
So and do you think the world is heading towards a time where potentially the studios will never go out, we know that, but will more things become done at home in people's own studios, do you think?
I think what's interesting is that we were already on that trajectory.
Yeah.
I've been doing this since I'm 45, and I've been doing this since I was 24 or something like that.
You're still a spring chicken, really, in the.
I don't know about that, but
in the LA world, anyway.
I got in the game really early. I had some friends, a really great producer friend of mine was like, hey, you should get a home set up. But I mean, it was kind of unheard of for me. I was just a trumpet player. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I did it. So I've been doing it for a long time. And then when I started producing, one of the first projects I had was a girl named Robin McKell. And she's an incredible singer from, she's now in Paris. She was Boston, Berkeley, and then New York. And then she's completely cleaned up on the scene in Europe. She's amazing. And I used Gary Grant. Wayne said, hey, call Gary Grant for this session. And I didn't know.
Better.
Oh, yeah. And so Wayne, I think right at that time, about 20 years ago, is right when Wayne kind of started doing a lot of stuff with Gary and maybe the Jerry Hayhorns and that kind of thing. And I said, hey, who should we get for this? It's going to be me and you, and then I need one more person for the section. He goes, oh, man, call Gary. It'll be great. And that turned out to be an incredible relationship. And so through that relationship, Gary was doing home recording years and years and years ago. And Gary's one of those guys who knows everything about everything.
Yeah.
He can tell you the math, on the difference between Pro Tools and Logic and how things work and why this is better and that. And so that was a really cool thing for me. And so, of course, I was like, well, yeah, great. So I've been doing it like that forever. So we were already on that trajectory.
Yeah.
Lots of recording. And then, of course, COVID hit. And I've gotten so many phone calls and just friends, hey, man, what do you use for your preamp? And what do you really need? And so I help all my friends like, oh, man, this is cheap, but like, this is the best thing ever. Try to get this, use that. And so it's like tons of people have these setups. And I think, like you said, there's no substitution for being Abbey Road, where you guys are. Yeah. Or being in Capitol where we are, or Warner Bros. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. You cannot imitate that sound. It's just incredible, But I think that, the world always finds ways to fix itself, to reinvent itself, to aid itself in these. So I think it's just a natural progression where people are going to go, well, hey, we already did. Remember during COVID, we did that one movie and like, well, why don't we just do it like that?
Yeah.
It was, it was a little bit less money, and Warner Brothers isn't open this week, or the American Idol's over at Capitol this week, so let's just do it at home. And I think that's just going to happen.
It probably will, yeah. So Just for our viewers then, the guys, especially the guys rewatching and stuff like that, what would you give as a good basic setup for a brass band?
Pardon me. Sorry. Well, it's interesting because as you get going, it's probably like anything, like a mouthpiece and a trumpet, and everything becomes important, right?
We'll definitely dive into that soon.
Sorry, man. I got some water there.
That's all right. Take your time.
Went down. So, let's just say for 1 second, money's not an issue. Like budget is not an issue. Set aside a few $1,000s and you're going to do it right. Lots of guys are using Logic. I'm a Pro Tools user myself. I don't know if one, pardon me, is necessarily better than the other. The only thing I'd say the difference between Logic and Pro Tools is that Pro Tools is pretty standard in big studios. So if you're sending session files, or somebody just says, hey, can you send me the whole session? Most of the time, big studios are not going to have like Logic, setups or something. So I'd say Pro Tools to start with. And then you need some kind of, if y'all are looking for like a home recording thing, let's go reverse order, right? The microphone. So for me, I worked with Arturo Sandoval some years ago, and I was musical director, and I would help, produce certain little projects, and we produced an album, a couple of albums while I was his musical director. One of them, he won a Latin Grammy for that we produced, and we would always record him on 2 microphones, together. And it is the Royer 121, which looks like a pencil for anyone. It's a silver like pencil for any. And actually, I have my R84 right here, which I can show you. It looks like this.
There you go. Yeah, man.
Fantastic microphone. And because it's sort of like a bigger capsule, they're both ribbon mics, and so they get incredible sounds. But when we would record Arturo, and we would decide, we don't really need both of these mics, a lot of times we would actually get rid of the Royer 121 because the R84 was a kind of a bigger, more warm sound. So if you guys are trumpet players out there, there's, and I'm not the authority. I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but I kind of know what I know, right? I mean, if you talk to somebody like Gary Grant, that guy knows. That guy knows everything. So I would say, if it depends on what kind of trumpet player you are too. If you're recording classical things, more, different mics might sound better, just like singers, right? Some, people think that the C12 is, the greatest microphone for singers ever, but it doesn't sound good on certain people. So, so good microphone, like a good ribbon mic, then you need it to go into a good pre. And I got to tell you, for those of you that are looking for like budget things, there is something called the Apogee Duet, which is like $600. I think I got mine for $500 on eBay like 15 years ago or something. And the Duet 2 is fantastic. It's like $600, and it has a built-in pre, and it's great. I use an Apogee Maestro or Ensemble, excuse me. So it's got 8 pre's in it, and then I have extra pre's on the outside of it. So great mic, great pre, and Pro Tools is kind of all you need. And obviously if you have a good room, like I have you can't see it, but this is like a big 30 by 30 room that I'm in right now, and you can do whatever. A few months ago, my computer went down and I had to go to a friend's house, and he records on a laptop with an Apogee Duet and a Royer. And
there you go.
A tiny little bedroom. And I told him, I swear to you, I think your setup sounds maybe better than mine.
Wow.
It was just in a little bedroom. And I was like, so, you never know, like if you're hearing, if you're trying to record like your solo classical record, that might be a different thing. But if you're just recording a bunch of like parts for records and, projects, personal projects, those things are good, and they're super helpful. And I got to tell you, it takes your whole game to another level because it makes you feel like you have some control over what you're doing. And it's just another tool to like produce and make content and just get it out there and do it. So I'd encourage anybody to do it. The 414 is also a good microphone for cheap ish, but Louis Dodswell, speaking of Louis,
Yeah.
Wayne told me, and I think I might have had a conversation with Louis about this, but Wayne and I were marveling over how great Louis' setups. I mean, obviously he's a phenomenal player, right?
Yeah.
But how great his setup sounds. And so Wayne was talking to him one day, and then Wayne goes, "Man, I was talking to Louis, and he goes, I think he uses like, I forget what he uses. He uses a good microphone, but then he also uses like a oh gosh, what's the crappy like live Shure mics that everybody
Like
uses?
SM57.
An SM57 or something like. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I think Louis uses like that as a second mic.
It could be like this one. This one's a rear. I think.
Yeah, something like that. Like it's great. So technology is so good.
But yeah.
The technology is so good. You just kind of mess with it and figure out your thing. There's an incredible pop star who is the lead singer of One Republic. His name is Ryan Tedder, for those of you guys that are pop people. And he does all his vocals for records on an SM57 in his bedroom. That's his thing. So, if you're out there and you're kind of going like, oh, that'd be fun to record at home. Yes, it is. It's empowering. It's great. It makes you feel like you're making progress in life, and you don't need to do it. So just go do it. Go do it.
And I think it's even if you don't end up recording stuff for Capitol Records or whoever, I think it's a great training tool to record yourself anyway. It's literally recording yourself, doubling yourself.
I mean, I make the most progress like practice wise as a player when I'm recording parts, because you hear something and you go, oh my gosh, I'm totally not. My tone is not straight, or my gosh, I'm not moving from one note to the next, or this note sounds different than this one, and that sounds terrible. Like you think it sounds good in your practice room, then you record yourself. Recording yourself every day is good. Even popping like a USB microphone for $150 into GarageBand, do that.
Exactly. And
you can do it.
If people want to do, say, what you do for a living and sit in a recording studio, that is great practice to just be able to, quicken up how many times you have to need to play it to get it right.
Oh yeah. And then you just get better at listening, because that's what it is. Like,
of course,
that's the ultimate litmus test to anything, right?
Yeah.
Live recorded solos, when you're singing, when you're playing the drum, whatever it is, does it sound good? That's the only litmus. Does it sound like it's supposed? We know what it's supposed to sound like. So anyway, so that's a live recording setup I have at home, and it's I have I've been collecting gear and buying really good stuff for like 20 years. So I've got like a super duper fancy, expensive vocal mic, but I don't need 10 of them. I just need one.
Exactly.
And luckily, my voice sounds good on the mic that I have, and my wife's voice sounds good. We kind of luck.
Well, that's the main thing. You can't upset the boss.
Great. I don't need like two $7,000 mics. One for me and one for my. Like, they sound good, so that's what I use. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. We've had a question come in. It is. Where are you pointing the bell of your trumpet when you're recording? Cheers for the question, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the way I learned from Gary was, give me 15 seconds. Hang on one second. I'm going to grab something.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, go out and get yourself some recording stuff, and don't be afraid. Too many people are afraid out there. Go get some stuff and record. Over to you, Willie.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm sure if like Tommy Vicari or somebody like that, or Steve Genowick was watching, they might agree, and then they might also have additional opinions. But so if this is your microphone, this is the Royer 121, by the way, and this is what it's a phenomenal microphone. So the way I was taught, and the way I learned is that it's not necessarily like a straight on. Let me see if I can put that in the camera. Exactly straight on, and you're right like that. I always learned to play off kilter, and maybe like 10, 12 inches from the bell, something like that, and just slightly off. So when I record like big band parts, or if I'm recording like a classical thing, I'll use this, like the mic like this, and then like, let's say that's trumpet 1, and then for trumpet 2, I'll use a totally different trumpet, a different mic, and I'll play even a little further. And then trumpet 3, I'll go back to maybe this mic and I'll use a different trumpet. And then I'll go off to another side, even a little bit further. So any variance you can get.
Yeah. Just to make it sound like different players in a way.
Yeah, is helpful. I actually learned this from a friend of mine. His name is Tim Davis. And he is the guy who's responsible, not Tim Davies, who is a composer, orchestrator guy who's done tons of great movies and stuff. He's a big deal from Australia, now living in LA. Yeah. Tim Davis is a guy who is a vocal producer who is responsible for the sound of Glee, if you know that, like that music. Yeah, okay. You like that. And I would go to those Glee sessions and watch him do stuff, and just with personal things. And I've seen the mic technique where they go like, so if you're quadrupling a part, you're on the mic like this and you're singing straight on. And then for part 2, you're kind of singing this way. Part 3, you're kind of singing that way. And it just, it kind of cuts down on like some of the phasing and all that kind of crappy stuff that you get. Yeah. So just, but mess around with it, certain techniques, get a little further, and it's common sense. If you're in the exact same place, it's going to sound the same, and you're going to have to EQ it differently. And there's lots of problems. Yeah. And I'm sure what I'm telling you right now is one of, 100 solutions. So
of course.
Yeah. But that's kind of my world. I enjoy like figuring that stuff out.
It's great. And I'd like to share a little bit of that with our viewers, because you did over lockdown. I don't know which lockdown this was, but while we've been in our houses, you recorded and composed a piece called My Miracle. And it's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, actually, an older piece of music I from years ago. And this is a bunch of my friends from LA. And it was just just a personal achievement kind of thing I wanted to do. And it's just a beautiful piece of music. Play
awesome. Enjoy, everyone. Yeah, man, it's beautiful. It really is. And if you're going to pick a bunch of friends, they're pretty good friends to have, aren't they?
nothing better than making music with your. I know it sounds so corny, but
It's true though.
so true, man. I forgot that I did a vocal session at my house with a group of like 8 singers a few months back, and we all kind of looked at each other, and I gotta be honest, man. Everybody in the room kind of started crying. It had been like 7 months before, and it was. I did not think it was going to hit me like that. And when I watched that, that was a while ago that we recorded that, but I just remember and go, man, these are like some of the greatest players on the planet, and for sure some of the best people on the planet.
Yeah.
There's great people everywhere. There's great players in the UK and Australia and Vegas, and it's. But when it's your people, and then it's your music.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine who said this great quote, who said, the worst thing that could happen to my music is that people play it like I intended.
Yeah. Don't put any personality in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you you hear what they do with it, you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this sound. Like, I'm still amazed that when I, go into a studio, if I'm just playing fourth trumpet on a session or, whatever, you just look around, you're like, man, this is cool. Like, we forget how cool it is what we do.
Yeah,
just like on an actual, like a physical level, we're creating these vibrations with our instruments and the years and gazillions of hours of practice, and it's just a cool thing. I'm sort of getting, a little existential because we've been locked down for like a year.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, it's in the end, it's one of those things also, is that you can sit in a practice room for as long as you can, but we're musicians, we like expressing with other people what to do, and we create this stuff for people to hear, and and it's hard. It's hard when you've got no outlet to go out there and do it. So, I think we all need to stick together, and the world will return for us, and it will make it good as musos.
Yeah, so. And somehow it'll get better because that's what we do in the human race. After we discovered fire, then now
now look what
we are. Convection of it,
Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure it out.
Well, that's amazing. So let's dive into a bit of trumpet then.
Yeah, baby, the world's favorite topic.
That's definitely ours. Humble beginnings. Was it like how did you start? Did you come from a musical family, or?
Yeah, my father was a band director,
right?
And he made me play the trumpet in 7th grade. I hated every minute. Hated it. Like, I would cry in my room when he'd go practice for 15 minutes, and it would be like the world's worst thing. Then one day when I was in 8th grade, I had a friend, and he was like, hey, let's ditch school tomorrow and let's go ride our skateboards. So I was like, all right. And I never did stuff like that ever.
Yeah.
So my family, we didn't have TV. We didn't have any kind of entertainment, like no Xbox, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So the next day came, and my friend never showed up, and I stayed home from school. And I was like, oh my God. So no TV, no Xbox, no nothing. And so my trumpet was there. So I just pulled out my trumpet, and I started messing with it. And I was just like making noises, like, doing stuff like that, just trying. And all of a sudden I was like, and I squeezed out like a G or something. And I was like, and I was trying to figure it out. So all day I kind of was like walking around the house, and then I'd come back to it and I'd pick it up and I'd be like, that's interesting. What is that? And I don't know, man, how to describe it. I'm a Christian, so I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in, that there's a destiny and that there's a plan for your life, and that all of these desires in our heart are pre-written and all this kind of thing. So I think that was like my moment. It was there already, and I had to wake it up. And as soon as I did that moment, I was like, ooh. And I just kind of had the fever, man. And that was it. And summertime, man, I was practicing like 10, 12 hours a day, every day. Yeah. I'd get up and do chores, and I'd rake the leaves, and then I'd hustle back. I had this great setup in my garage when I was like 14. I had a friend who was Mormon, and he went on his mission for 2 years, and he left me his drum set.
Wow.
And so I think that there's some correlation. So I learned how to play. So I play drums.
So there's good rhythm.
I learned how to play drums like that, for a couple of years. And I feel like I did that at the right time because I was learning how to play in high school jazz band. And then I was also playing drums,
Yeah.
and I'd hear directors talk about, and you hear, and then I would just play along with every record, Earth, Wind and Fire on the trumpet.
Yeah.
Then I'd get tired and I'd go to the drums, so just stuff like that. And so, I think it was a bit of the, whatever you want to call it, predestination thing. Like I just had it in me. I was always, my son, who is going to be 14 tomorrow, the 14-year-old. It's so interesting because my wife, his stepmother, from an early age, we'd be sitting in the car and he would be singing.
Oh, wow.
And she would like tap me like secretly, like, are you hearing this?
Yeah.
And he'd be singing these harmonies. Like we'd be listening to like Claire de Lune or some class, something. And this guy, my football star, he's got like all this amazing, and my 4-year-old has it too. It's crazy. And I remember like listening to Beatles and singing tons of harmonies just when I was, 6, 7 years old. And so I think I had music in me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was like a particularly great musician necessarily, but I think I was natural. Like I just had some natural giftedness. Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting because I had some natural giftedness on the trumpet. Right. But I also had some interesting things. My college trumpet teacher, who was my trumpet teacher at the summer camps through high school. Yeah. My very first day of college, he said to me, his name was Mark Garibrandt, for anybody that lives in LA and that knows him. He said, all right, now we're in college. This is not high school anymore. And he said, let me just tell you something. He said, you're a freak, man. He said, it's all wrong. And if you let me, I'll fix it for you.
Really?
And I think because I was like a squirrely, immature guy, I think he maybe had doubts as to whether or not I was going to, but man, I followed his regiment to the letter. Buzzing for an hour a day, blah, blah, blah. So it's like I had this crazy amount of like chops, and I could play a double high C sharp when I was in high school. Like I just had this weird thing. I had great endurance, but it was all wrong. I mean, I was doing it all backwards. Wayne kind of has the same story. Like, you discover these chops and then you realize if you keep going, you're going to hurt yourself, And so I could play all this stuff and I could play for days and I could just hammer a high G on the field, but I couldn't go. It was like, it was awful, let alone, try to make some music, Like just to make something sound easy and just, like a normal human style trumpet player, and so it was awful. And so I got into college and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I loved it. I wanted it. I was like, I want this. I don't know why I want this, but I loved music. And anybody that's out there watching this right now knows what I'm talking about. Nobody has to tell you why you love it.
No.
They could tell you you're gonna be broke. Or you could get a different job and you'd have to think about it. You'd be like, no, I'm still going to do this. It's just one of those things, it's like, you love it. I don't know why we love it, but we love it. It's just in your bone. So I loved it. I was going to do it. So I continued on. And then I met Wayne when I was like 16 years old and he took me under his wing and was like, wow, man, you have great natural chops. You're this, da. And what was beautiful at that time is that he was kind of coming up into the big boy leagues right when I met him. So I think he's roughly 20 years older than me, something like that. 18 years, something like that. So he was kind of like, early 30s, kind of had a lot of stuff together and just starting to get like really noticed after he had a lot of things that he had done some road work and Maynard and all that stuff. Yeah. And now he's like becoming the guy, right? So he took an interest in me, and we all know Wayne. He's a lovely guy, and he'll love on anybody. He's just a good human. And so I think having that encouragement, like, wow, this guy likes me and thinks I'm good, and he's doing these things, so maybe I could do those things. Yep. And I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that, like, when you hear the trumpets on Indiana Jones, that it sounded cool, and there was something in me that wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, okay, so I just kind of kept going, and then I had a situation, a ex-girlfriend of mine who was working for a composer in LA who will remain nameless, and she sent me on a session with this composer woman, and it was a completely unfair situation. I remember I called Wayne and I go, man, I just did this session. This lady's never gonna call me again.
Wow.
And it was awful. And it was like one of those military movies, where, it would be like, people in the jungle, and then you'd be like,
yeah,
one of those kind of cues. And she wanted me to improvise it. And I was like, it was like 7/4. I'm like 22 years old, just getting started. I don't know what the crap I'm doing. So I did it. Then she's like, great, now let's double it and add harmony. I'm like, I don't even know where I played this stuff. It's like a 3-minute scene. So sometimes you'll get asked to do things that are unfair. So I remember I was really discouraged. That was one of the first like real things I did. And to this day, she's called me one time, and that was it. Never again. And so I remember thinking, I don't ever want to be put into a situation where I can't do something.
Yeah.
And recently if any of you guys have seen The Last Dance on Netflix, the Michael Jordan story.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like, he sort of talks about that sort of like towards the, in his high school career, like early college, like I want to outwork everybody. And I felt a lot like the things that, like, I resonated with a lot of the things he was saying. Like, I feel like I have enough natural abilities to kind of do whatever.
Yeah.
And I figured out that it's a math equation. If you play enough high G's, you can play high G's.
Yeah.
If you practice Charlier number 2, your sound is going to be the most beautiful sound anyone's ever heard. If you tongue, there's no speed you won't be able to, like, it's just a math equation, right? And in the practice app that I have created, James Morrison talks about, he said it's a really simple equation. Whatever you practice a lot of, you get good at. That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So if you want to run 20 miles, then you got to run 50 every day, and then you'll be able to run 20 without breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
And I figured that out early. I'm like, that makes sense. And so I just started doing it, and and then I always tell this story. I remember one of the first big dates I ever did. For those of you that are watching this, maybe you don't know John Lewis. He's incredible. John Lewis is like the premier first trumpet player in Los Angeles. He plays first trumpet on like all the big movies, and he's incredible. Tone for days, beautiful. And I remember I was like 24, and I was really getting it together, or maybe 25 or something. And I ended up on this date, and it was like this Danny Elfman cue or something, and it was a big timpani. Boom. And it was like 8 seconds. And I don't even know, honest to God, if I played a note. It was like huge orchestra, and I was like, oh crap, okay, I get it now. That I got it. This is what okay. And I'm like, John Lewis is known for his delicate, unbelievable accuracy, and he played the loudest high C on C trumpet that I've ever heard. Wow. And it was ringing so, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like when you hear Wayne play a high A, and you're like, oh my God, like, it's like the difference between watching a kid play Pop Warner and watching like, Ezekiel Elliott or something, in the NFL. And you're like, wow, okay. It was like 10 years of education in 8 seconds of a cue that it turned my head, and I was like, okay, I better get it together. I'm not ready for this.
Yeah. I mean, that must be a daily feeling for you. Really. Like, well, not that you're not ready for it, but sitting amongst those amazing players, it just be like, holy smokes.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, there's never a date that I'll go to. If I go to a date in 6 months, and even if I'm playing first trumpet, there will be somebody in the room that does something where you're like, it's sort of jaw-dropping. And we take it for granted. I don't say that exaggerating. I mean, I'm being serious. My favorite drummer of all time is a guy named Bernie Dressel. He used to play in the Phat band. He's an incredible drummer. And I will be honest in saying, and anybody that's from LA that's watching this might kind of roll their eyes, but I'm telling you my personal experience.
Yeah.
from my personal life, I've never, and I know this is a huge statement, and I swear to you, this is not an exaggeration. I've never heard Bernie make a mistake. Wow. I've never heard Bernie misread something. And I've heard him read some hard stuff. I've used him on every one of my recordings. I've never used another drummer except for once or twice.
Wow.
And I've done probably hundreds and hundreds of recording sessions, TV commercial records, blah, blah, blah. And this guy, I mean, and so when you see, and that's the level, like,
yeah,
to get to sit next to John Lewis or Wayne every once in a while, however often that comes up, or Barry Perkins. If you guys don't know Barry Perkins, he's incredible. I sub in Pacific Symphony. And to hear him, man, he played, I got to sit next to him on a John Williams concert, and he played the solo to Summon the Heroes.
Oh,
yeah. It was like the most gorgeous thing. And it was totally different. Tim Morrison plays it.
Yeah.
So here I am in middle school, high school, college. I get told, hey, man, you're freaky good, but it's all wrong. You got to fix it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can do this. Then I kind of get it together pretty quick because I was a practicer. Go to college, drop out of college. Now I do this session and I'm like, oh, there's more to it than just playing good.
Mm.
You have to be like good at business, and you have to be, a fun person to hang with, and on and on and on. So it's just been an uphill learning curve I've never, I didn't have many people that were my age. There's a guy named Rob Shear, who's a phenomenal trumpet player, and he's a big first trumpet player in Los Angeles too. Great classical, great commercial, great lead. He's just an all around phenomenal player, and he's starting to play a lot of first on movies and that kind of thing. And Rob was one of the only guys somewhat my age. In fact, I think he's a few years younger than me. I don't remember exactly. So when I kind of got sucked into the scene, and I would like tag along with Gary Grant to a Jerry Hayes session, or I would tag along with something like that. Most of these guys are like 20 years older. So I've never felt like, if you ask Wayne and you talk to Wayne, he's got a beautiful example of what he is. He comes to the table with brilliance and muscle and goodness and musicality and, instincts and all this stuff. And so, but then he's sort of on this life journey where he's just like, yeah, I'm going to get better every day and I'm going to practice. I never felt like that. I always felt like I was 20 years behind. So I would go home and I'd be like counting the minutes, hours, days until the next session, trying to cram as much as I could in, try to sound like that. Because once you hear a guy like Dan Fernero or Wayne or Jerry Hay, or let's say some great jazz player, or some great, like Dave Wales or Dave Washburn or John Lewis, that's the standard. That's just so everybody else is just trying to be that.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a controversial way, like we're all trying to cop Wayne, but that's the standard. Dan Fernero doesn't sound like Wayne. He's his own guy. He's got a beautiful personality in the way he plays. He's got a bit of a different sound, but that's the so for me, when I was growing up, I was like counting the seconds. Like I gotta get closer to the way, John Lewis sounds, or the way that Larry Hall sounds, or Gary Grant, or Wayne. Yeah. And I never felt like I was just living my life and I'm just going to get better as I know. I was like frantically trying to, that's the way my whole life has been. And so anyway, that's my journey.
But that's no, not at all. I mean, it's great for people to hear as well, because obviously there's probably people out there that feel like they're falling behind, and they've got to know that everyone, or a lot of people, do feel like that. It's a rare few that just are constantly on that road, and they know that their life's sorted and getting better and everything like that. But funny enough, you've said that, because that almost seamlessly leads me to a tiny little, one of my favorite sound checks you did with the Big Phat Band on the trumpet section. And you know how you said you all got your own personalities, but you could sound exactly like it. This is one of my favorite ones. Yeah. So here it is. Have a listen to this, guys.
3, 2, 3. We don't need trumpets in the monitor.
Yeah, man. I mean,
You know what's my favorite part of that? My favorite part of that, every time that comes up, like on YouTube or Facebook or something, is that you hear Andy Martin go, "We don't need any trumpets in the monitor."
I was just gonna say that. It's so good. I love Andy to bits. I want to get Andy on here as well, and it's just so good. Just we don't need no trumpets in the monitor, please. Very good.
And we have like this little phrase that I think Larry Hall. If you don't know Larry Hall, he's like one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. Phenomenal trumpet player, great history. Like played with Gary and Chuck Finley, and you know he was part of the Jerry Hank, you know, all that crowd.
Yeah.
Anyway, we would play. Wayne would play something, and he would turn to him and go, "Lovely." And so that was a lot of times, like if you listen for that word "lovely," because there's a few YouTube videos where we're like playing something really hard and the sound check, and you'll hear a lot of times with Andy, he'll go "lovely" or something.
I mean, there must be little cues and little things you pick up. Like there's one on the background of Dan Finero's thing on YouTube of his CD, Not So Old School, and he's recording it. And there must be a trumpet player out there that sniffs after everything that goes well. He goes, or something like that, because Wayne mentions it and they piss themselves laughing.
Yes.
So, you know, it's, But,
yes.
So you're quite, talking a bit technical, you did say you're a trumpet geek. Yeah, you're quite an upstream or very straight trumpet player. Like, you know, most people are sort of down and everything like that. So what is there a certain technique that you followed? Like when you went through college and you said, "I'll fix it for you." Is there something that you went through?
One thing that I realized is that the way you play, and somebody must have told me this because I wasn't smart enough to figure this out on my own, but I can't remember who. But like just the way you play naturally, right? So like if I'm going. So if I'm just playing something, you know, that's like some warm up or something, you know, whatever, like that. I feel like I'm playing. It probably looks like I can see myself in the screen right now. I'm somewhat, you know. So in that embouchure, what I learned to do, not change my embouchure, but I learned to, in that embouture, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with my embouchure. No. The bite is, I have an upstream bite, like a whatever that's called.
Underbite.
Underbite. Yeah, thank you. So in my underbite, I just learned how to play efficiently, like. Like in that, I just learned how to play and create sound real easily. I didn't necessarily like change my embouchure. So, you know, just playing 1,000 million billion Charliers and just learning how to play like. Like get around the trumpet, you know, whether it's like in a sort of technical classical way or like even in a jazz, like, you know, the jazz technique, obviously everybody that plays trumpet out there, you know that it's slightly different, right?
Yeah. And
so to play. To go like low to high or whatever, I feel like I'm doing the same things, like when I practice, like I'm just being efficient, like being able to play like a steady sound from low to high, whether it's classical or jazz. So that's what I mean by I fixed it, because I was using a lot of muscle. I was probably pressing real hard.
Yeah.
You know, and the stuff wouldn't come out, and, you know, so on and so forth. So just being able to make a beautiful sound kind of effortlessly, that was always my goal.
I mean,
because I would watch guys do that, and I would go, man, how do they like just play these? Like you would see like the Academy Awards on TV, and you'd see like Rick Baptist or Gary Grant or whomever, and you go, man, how do they make that sound? It looks like they're barely touching their face.
Yeah.
So that's like the visual I had in mind. Like these guys have a 10 times better of a sound than I could even dream of. And it looks like they're really touching their face. How do they do that? Yeah. So that's the thing I marched towards since I was, 17 years old. I still do every day, marching towards that. Yeah.
I think, well, we're never going to stop striving to get that. And we've always got those people in our heads, don't we? And I think it's what you just said was exactly how everyone should think. Everyone's mouth is different. And Wayne says it very beautifully. He says that playing music is a discovery. You just got to discover what you're doing with yourself,
He's so good at that. And I've, and if you think about it, we have learned a ton since the 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. But really, we've learned a ton in like the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So like when you look at like some of the little bit slightly older regime, like the Jerry Hayes, the Gary Grants, the Malcolm McNabbs, the Euan Racies, those guys didn't have YouTube and all these different things. And I remember one time we were talking about this, Wayne had this, we were backstage somewhere, and he was talking about trying to fix the fact that he had this weird slot that he couldn't get to on a high G. And so he goes, play a high G for me. So I was playing it, and he just took my bell and he went, and he just tipped it up slightly.
Ha.
Or something, and he goes, play it loud, try to relax. And so I won't do it now, but I was playing, and he just kind of went like that, and it went, bah! And it kind of like opened up, and I was like, interesting. And he used to talk about a guy named Joe Davis, who was also like a Rick Baptist type, like an LA big time, super fantastic guy. There's not a lot of recordings of him on YouTube or anything, but there's one that I saw recently. Joe Davis, he was a super upstream. I mean, the guy used to play literally.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Fantastic, incredible sound and all. And so I've learned to just embrace some of those things. Like when you watch, Wynton, or you watch some of these guys, you watch John Lewis, they don't move. I move a lot, actually, and I've always been conscious of it. Like I feel like I move a bit, and I've tried to fix that, and I'm like, I don't know if it needs I feel comfortable doing it. Yeah. So I'm just gonna embrace it. And I mean, I don't know if anybody has like the perfect, when you watch Wayne playing the upper register, or when you watch like Malcolm McNabb or John Lewis or somebody like that, they don't move a lot, but some guys do, and I don't know. So I've just embraced it. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but
I think
it does hurt.
Yeah. I personally think sometimes teachers can harm it as well by if something's working, they'll just go, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Don't do that. But it might work for that person. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. And everybody's got the, the shape of their mouth, and I don't, whatever. So
there's a lot of science in it.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
That's fine. Shall we go through? I mean, I saw the variety of instruments you got, and if anyone wants to, go check out Willie's YouTube channel. There's a great clip, cute as anything as well, where you give a trumpet lesson. And I think, is it your son sat on the couch with you?
Oh, my little guy, Sam. Yeah. That was right at the beginning of quarantine. And I had this friend of mine, her name is Monique Donnelly, and she's like an A-list, LA session singer, fantastic. And she teaches these little kids. And she called me and said, is there any way you'd be willing to do like a little 1 minute, demo of the trumpet, just so I could show my kids?
Yeah. And
I was like, yeah, totally. And so I just got and so I have all these instruments, my flugelhorn and, and this thing, which is, if any of you guys are in know Shawgirl trumpets,
this is called the one.
Yeah, it's called it's called Raven, and it's like it's a B flat trumpet ultimately, but it's sort of like a hybrid of like a cornet thing. It's a really interesting horn because you can make it sound like small and cornety and conical,
like the old school.
And then you can open it like a real, even. you can like lean on it. You know, it's
Yeah.
really good. I had a good time with this horn, and plus it looks really cool. You know?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's really nifty. James has, I think, a silver or a gold one of these or something.
Yeah.
And then this is by far the best trumpet I've ever played.
Really?
This instrument. Oh yeah.
This is Chagall Flugel, isn't it?
Yeah, Chagall I think it's called the Killer Queen. I think they call it.
Nice.
And just so probably I say that because I feel like I've never had a good flugelhorn sound. Like the best flugelhorn sound I think on planet Earth is Chuck Finley.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like you
silk,
can,
man.
When you hear it, it's like you see fur.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like this, and you know who gets that sound is Wayne can kind of imitate that sound, and he's got a beautiful sound.
Yeah. And
there's great, phenomenal jazz players who I don't think gets that sound. And so what's interesting is this total quick side note. When I was a kid, my mom was a clean fanatic. It's growing up in a Hispanic house, man. 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Oh God, every Saturday we'd have to clean, right? And so from my room, I would hear the needle noise of the record player.
Yeah, right.
And it was one of three things. It would be the Beatles, the Beach Boys, or it would be this old album by a group called Renee. Now, you know how we all do albums and different projects and whatever. Well, this Renee group was just some random like Mexican music group and like sort of pop group. And there was this trumpet solo on there that I've been hearing since I was like 4 years old. And we would every Saturday. And then when I got old enough to know who Chuck Finley was, I was like, that's Chuck Finley on that album that I've heard since I was like 4 years old. I just know that sound. So I had that sound in my head, but I could never imitate it. And so when I got this thing, I started playing it, and it sounded more like that Chuck Finley, that
sound
fluffy.
You got in your head, yeah. Yeah.
So it's got it just kind of naturally does that, and I think it's the and check out the cool, you know.
Yeah, they're nice, man.
It's my favorite instrument because I'm able to achieve something that I really never have achieved. I just never. I don't know why. I just can't get it together on the flugelhorn. Like it's just that beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, there's something to be said about, you know, achieving that sound in your head. You know, I've had a few moments where it's like that, and you're just like, oh, I wish I could do that every time. You know, but that's what we're always striving for. So
yeah.
But yeah. Well, so you brought out this. Oh, hang on, going back actually, because you said you produced you were a musical producer for Arturo.
Yes.
Yeah. Was the Grammy Award-winning album Dear Diz?
No, I played on that album.
Oh, I know.
And there's a great album. I mean, there's a great YouTube out there of the trumpet section playing the soli of a song called "Things to Come."
I'm about to play
Goodwins. What's that?
I'm about to.
Oh, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
go ahead. Then
pretty much, guys. This is something that I want to put down. And I want to ask Willie. When you sit down, and I mean, you may have known what was coming up before you sat in this studio, but sometimes obviously you don't. So I just want to know your process of when you get something like this, how you go about it in your head and where to start. So enjoy this, guys. It might be a little loud because on YouTube it's pretty crazy. Like, what?
Check it out. You know what's interesting is everybody sees that clip and they're like, whoa. But the thing I like about that clip is at the very end, if you let it play for like another 3 seconds, or it only lasts like another 2 seconds, somebody in the room, whoever that, it might be Gordan or something, I don't know who's, they go, yeah. And Wayne, you hear Wayne go, well,
yeah.
And that's what I love about this music. Yes, I'm a good player. We're all good players. Everybody's a good player, you know. But when you get to play with guys like that and a performance like that, and Wayne or somebody like that goes, well, like, okay, it's not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, it is to be celebrated that, you know, there's 5 guys in the room that can play that, and it's really exciting and fun. But you know, that's going to be a 98% every time, but to get it up to that 100.5%, you know, that's when you really got to dig in and not be emotional about it, and be, you know, and be accurate and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of those cool moments where you go, we did that probably, I don't know, 8, 10 times, 15 times, 7, who knows. But you know, when then we finally got it and it was good. Maybe they put 2 takes together. I don't know how they did it, whatever. But it's really cool because you come in and it's not something that needs to be rehearsed a bunch of times. You know, any, you know, top call player in the world in London or, you know, Sydney or Melbourne or LA could probably read that. It might need a little bit of, you know, unless you're Andy Martin and you could just sight read it perfectly and play it perfectly. He's one of the only guys in the world that can just, you know, he's just so good. His talents really no bounds. Truly, he's that guy. But you know, so we had that was Wayne playing lead. I was playing fourth. So that was Wayne, Dan, Gary, me, and Arturo. And everybody in that section obviously has strengths, right?
Yeah.
But as a team, if you don't harness your strengths together, it actually is going to be less than what it would be as a fine individual. And so it's kind of exciting and you know, that record, Arturo played his solos live on that record.
Wow.
He's sitting right next to me.
Yeah,
right. I have a bunch of iPhone videos of just like this. You know? There's an incredible battle. It might even be on that tune with Bob Shepard and Bob. And those guys played it live. And you know what was really cool? We were just talking about this with Greg Field the other day, who produced that record. I work for Greg Field a bit. He's a great producer and played drums with Sinatra and Basie, and
amazing.
Really good guy. He's married to Monica Mancini, Henry Mancini's daughter.
Wow.
Anyway, we were talking about it the other day where, you know, Bob, they played it live and somebody said, hey, let's do another take. And they were like, why? What was wrong with that one?
Yeah.
They're like, well, maybe just he's like, nope, I like that solo. That was that's it.
Yeah, I said what I wanted to say.
I'm certainly not at that level where I would want to be playing, you know, lightning fast bebop tune, you know, and just one take and then that's that.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
you know,
yeah, that's knowing your journey when you're soloing, isn't it?
That group of guys, you know, in LA might be, you know, a 1% in the world, but then you take the 1% of that group, and that's where you get guys like Andy Martin, who will play like some kind of crazy rhythm changes solo in E, and he'll be like, yeah, that's good, like that's my solo, I'm good. Or Bob Mintzer or somebody like that just shreds it. That's not to say that everybody plays everything perfect all the time. I've heard people miss, but man, you know, it's really exciting. And I don't play lead in that environment. I'm a lead trumpet player. I play lead, but in those environments, it's not often that, you know, because you've got guys like Wayne or, you know, Barry Perkins or, you know, Dan Fernero, or on the classical side, you know, Barry or John Lewis or Dave Washburn or somebody like that. It's like, why would you not give the ball to that guy?
Yeah.
You know, I'm a accomplished trumpet player. I can pick up the piccolo trumpet and make it sound good. But that level is just like, man, you're not going to get any better than that. You know, you hear Dave Washburn play we can all, Wayne or Dan, we can all pick up a piccolo and sound good and convincing. Yeah. And be better than good or convincing, you know, or whatever. But man, to have a guy like, you know, Barry play the solo to Summon the Heroes in his beautiful, like, Ness. Yeah. Like, come on, you know, why would you want anybody else to play it? You know?
I mean, most of the one thing that comes across on a lot of these streams a lot is that we need to be humble as musicians. We know our strengths, but when you're working in our job, no, you got to know other people's strengths as well. You know, and Mike Lovett said that as well. You know, just passing, just going, you know what, this suits you, but you have it. You know, and stuff like that. It's
and I've had a lot of experience with that. With different people, and both good and bad. And I know we keep talking about Wayne, but obviously he's our hero and he's our good friend and he's been through a lot. But I will say one of the things I learned from Wayne was that exact same thing. Wayne is so confident in his abilities, and yet in a very humble way, that many times, especially when I was coming up, man, he would pass the ball to me and even if it was like a little 2-bar jazz feel or something, he'd be like, "Here, Willie, play this." Yeah. And he would hand it to me over certain veteran guys in the section so I could be heard.
Yeah.
Like
which is amazing.
Yeah, and he could do just as good of a job, probably better, and even executing because strong trumpet player and confidence and all the things you need. Because even though maybe I'm a great jazz player in this moment, in this key, in this thing, and this is in my wheelhouse, maybe the experience or lack of is going to catch up with me. Yeah. Or maybe the nerves are going to catch you or something like that. And, he's really great. And then likewise, I have been on some dates where there are guys who don't do what I do. And it's clear that I'm there for this particular job.
Yeah.
They won't pass, and they just kind of don't look, and then just put it on and I'm just watching, going like, okay, I need to be ready for it up. And then they don't pass it. And, you hear about it a week later. How man, from the producer, "Hey man, how come you didn't play the solo on this that I needed, or whatever." So I have learned that, and I got to be honest, man. On these podcasts and on these streams and everything, we talk like everybody talks to make themselves look great, which is what we do in life. And I have fallen victim to the lack of humility of that. I've not passed a part because I really want to be heard, or I want to be, or I'm just bored to tears. And I don't want to play third trumpet on these 3 songs. I'm the lead player on this band. I'm going to play this tune or whatever. And it's come back to bite me. And it's really, sometimes there's difficult learnings, when you're not humble, or even when you are humble, but it's just the appearance of.
Yeah.
So that's a big learning too that I've had, is the appearance of not being humble can really hurt you.
Yeah.
So man, I've learned a lot about that stuff, about passing, parts and not passing parts and that kind of thing. And I'm not trying to be a prick. I just, I've already passed a bunch. I'm going to play this tune. And then somebody gets pissy about it or whatever, or then all of a sudden, you've played 3 in a row and then somebody goes, "Hey, by the way, Willie, play lead on this one, no matter what,"
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh shoot, what bad timing. I just didn't pass 2 songs. Just played the solo previous to this one, and now you're saying, "Oh, I want you to play this solo," and now one section, or people are kind of looking like, "Oh, okay,"
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes hard, isn't it? It's like sometimes you get the tap as well, or you get the guy going, "Do you mind if I play lead on this one?" And in my mind, I'm like, go for it. If you want to do it that much, so you have to ask for it. But there's sometimes an emptiness in me where I'm just like, "Oh, I was really looking forward to this one," but I wanted to help them out. So
yeah, no, I get that. And there's a lot we could talk about that and ego and all.
Yeah.
What was interesting is I did another podcast like this, and it was funny. I was very vulnerable and honest about a lot of that stuff, and I think people don't want to hear that stuff. I got a bunch of thumbs down on YouTube, about my honesty about certain things. And one of the things I said was that we tend to be super polarizing as like obviously as a human race, but particularly in the music industry, it's like, that guy's the greatest whatever I've ever seen. That guy's the greatest. And we think because this guy can play a great high G, or that guy can play alto and flute and tenor, and he played the greatest tenor solo and that they're also a great father and friend. They're not. Yeah. We're all human. Just because I'm really good at, writing a big band chart or something, doesn't mean that I'm the greatest human on the planet. But we tend to villainize people and we tend to idolize people. Yeah. I think incorrectly so. And sometimes we get mentored and pick up things mentorship wise that are not quite in line. And you know, people can do certain things when they're at a certain stature, but maybe when you're 18 or 19 or 25, you can't do those things in the same way. It's kind of like, you know, when I tell my kids, like, hey, let's not use that. That's more of an adult word.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that it's a bad word, but, you know, I just don't want to hear you guys, you know, saying it in that way or what, you know, it's like the hierarchy and there's a thing. And it took me a minute to learn that stuff. And sometimes you burn bridges and then people just don't accept you back and they don't accept that thing. And unless you're this person or that person, that these guys can do whatever they want. And so I learned that early on. And so I'm just kind of trying to be me. I'm trying to be authentic and vulnerable. And that's my new journey as a person, is just to be authentic and vulnerable. And so anyway, that's a little diversion from what we were talking about. But
it's amazing. And it's so good to hear someone just talk so openly and naturally about it. And most of the most successful people that I talk to on here, they are like that. They are just, you know, which is great. It's great for me to see. And it's great for all my viewers to see, because, you know, when people go through high school and everything, there's this human need for praise and this human need for this, and people want to be the best, and it ends up causing rifts and fights, and we should all just work together, you know. And that's why, like, an inspiration for this stream is to get this information out to people so people can just relax, just be themselves, play, you know. But anyway, let's talk a bit about your vocalist. Have you got your own band together? You got a CD going?
So I gotta tell you about this. So I've always been a singer. I've sung since I was a kid. You know, I sung in like church choirs and, you know, this and that and the other. And then about 15 years ago, maybe more than that, I was doing a jingle for somebody, and they said, hey, can you write something? And that was when I started kind of like going into writing for strings, and not just trumpet or brass or horns, but more stuff. So I sent a demo of this jingle for, I think it was Walmart, I want to say. And it was, I sung all the parts, the girl parts and the guy voices and everything. And I sent it to them, and they go, okay, this is great. Send us the stems. And I go, no, that's just the demo. You have to get somebody for real to sing the girls and the guys. And they're like, no. And they just took it. And I was like, maybe I could do this for real. Because I thought, oh, this sounds pretty good for me. Yeah. Like for me, for what I do, this is pretty good. I'm pretty proud of this. Like, it's like, you know, when you're not a builder and you build something, like, hey, for me.
It didn't fall down. Happy days.
So I kind of kept singing on demos, and then I sung on a little student film, and then a movie, and this little TV. And I was like, interesting. So I just thought, what happens if I commit to this and like really try to do this and sound good? And all of a sudden I was like, that sounds pretty good. Like I think most people don't like their own voices.
I don't think many people do know.
I hate my voice. Well, I can be objective and go, okay, that for what it's supposed to be, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You know? And so I just kind of started doing it. Then I had this experience where somebody called me and they said, hey, we need something for a feature film. It was a big film. And can you do this? And I was like, all right. So we did this thing, we recorded it, and I sung it, and it's been in a bunch of films, this piece of music that you're about to hear.
Yeah.
Written by a friend of mine called Steve Lang, a great producer, great songwriter, great pianist. And we recorded this thing at Capitol live in the room, and it came out great. So check it out.
I'm having a ball. My life is a blast. I'm loving it all, and who knows how long this will last. I'm having a ball. I'm running the show. How I got stuck with so much luck, I'll never know. I'm living a dream, just floating on air. should ever be rain on my parade. Well, I don't care. I'm having a ball. I'm calling the shots. I'm sharing my fortune with my friends, and I got lots. Each day I wake up and greet the world at my feet. I'm riding high, I can't deny I'm having a ball. I'm having a ball.
Yeah, Willie Murillo. Yeah, man, I love your voice. I think it's great, and you can put an incredible band together, obviously, because I mean the guys that are your mates, like you know. What
Hey, let me give you a side note about that band. Let me give you a side note about that band. This is really cool. So a few years back, about 10 years ago, maybe about 8 years ago, the Colburn School, which is sort of like if you guys don't know the Colburn School, it's like the Juilliard of the West Coast. They called and said, "Hey, we want a program that rivals our orchestra, you know, on the community side. Can you put something together?" So I said, "Sure." So I was like, "What do we do?" So essentially, it was like a rehearsal band. That was, and I decided to target. I would have a lot of students call me and like, "Hey, I just moved to LA. Can you help me get in the scene? Hey, can you introduce me to this person?" And so I had a ton of students at that time that were just like that. And there was a big population of young guys that came in the scene, and they're guys that are now in the scene.
Brilliant.
Not necessarily next to me or anything like that, but just they came at that time, and really lovely players that, like, I met him in the All-American College Band and, you know, things like that. So anyway, they called and so I said, "Well, let's put this band together." So we called it the Session Squad. It was kind of like post-college, you know, like about to be in the real world kind of guys. That band is all those guys. Those are not pros. Those are the guys that were in that band.
Yeah.
And as a project, I said, "Hey, let's go record this at Capitol. And it'll give you a real life experience of what it's like to play on a movie and what it's like to do this, you know." And some of them had never been in a studio, some of them did a couple times, but we did it at Capitol. So it was really exciting for them. And man, I mean, as you can hear, sounds like the real thing. I mean, it sounds like every great player in LA is on that recording.
It does, yeah.
The lead player is a guy named Nick Chafee, and he's also a good arranger. And so I said, "Hey, do you want to take on this arranging project?" So we sort of did it together. I sort of had my guiding hand on him. So it's sort of half mine, half his, you know. Together. But he's playing lead trumpet on that track, and I've had people text me, "Hey man, who's playing lead trumpet on that track? Is that Gary Grant?" I go, "No, man, this guy."
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about LA, man. Like, you know, here's this guy, total no-name guy. He's 26 years old or whatever. Just some totally bad to the bone young guy that nobody's ever heard of, except for us here in LA. You know, he's a friend to all. Just incredible play. And so that's also another thing that I think is cool about this town is you get all these young up-and-comers. They sound like incredible, you know. So
and
that was a group of guys like that.
But it's also great that you can give people like that an opportunity. I mean, there's a big thing that I find around the world sometimes that, you know, there is what they call the inner circle, you know, and if you're not in that inner circle, you don't get those opportunities. So the fact that you created that for them is incredible. So
yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you all night, obviously, Willie, because you've got a life and a family to get to, but we can't go anywhere before we get onto your practice app. Obviously, you've brought that up. We've mentioned it a few times. So before we chat about it, let's just show a little video, a little introduction to it, and then we'll have a chat. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm James Morrison and welcome to Practice. Now in this series I'm going to talk a lot of technical things, a lot of things you need to work on and all that, but I want you to remember the whole time when you practice, it's important to know what it's for. It's for making music. So keep that attitude the whole time. Spend as much time you can while you're working on this stuff being musical. I only ever single tongue. I never use any other kind of tonguing on the trombone. Now that's not advice, I'm just telling you how I do it. Everybody improvises. I mean, if you don't, then every conversation you've had today, you worked out yesterday. That's a little weird. See that? Fusion and funk, there's Latin jazz, there's swing, there's bebop. Repetition is the mother of skill. You do something a lot of times, you get good at it. Musical conversation, often referred to as trading fours. I'm going to ask you not to call that the tuning slide anymore. We're going to call it the ease of playing slide. Just over a few months of playing that way, you get stronger and stronger and increase your range. It's not a competition. Let's see who wins. I'm James Morrison. Let's practice. I'm James Morrison. Welcome to Practice.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, if most people, I'm very lucky to have performed with James when I was back in Australia, and I hope to eventually whenever I move back to Australia as well at some point in the future. Obviously you've performed with him multiple times, there's many videos on YouTube, but I think the irony of that when I first saw that video was James is he doesn't really practice. So that's the best bit about it, and he just went awkward to practice. I'm like, oh, finally you're gonna actually do some, are you?
Right. Well, let me back up. So the practice app was birthed a few years ago. A friend of mine called me, and I'm a co-creator with him, a guy named Frankie Sendejas. Great friend of mine, beautiful human being, this guy, great trumpet player. And he called me and said, hey, I've got this idea. What if we did like a webinar thing and, with some great trumpet players and blah. And I said, yeah, there'd be like 11 people that would really like that on the planet, And so we just started talking about it because I feel like there's something here that we could do. And so we kind of came up with this concept, which is, it's not foreign, it's like masterclass, a lot of online tutorial things, and there's a lot of stuff. But we thought, boy, wouldn't this be cool if we had all these incredible professionals from around the world, great content, filmed really well, great instruction, blah, the whole thing. And so we started doing it. So now we're to a place where we have amazing musicians. We have athletes, like Olympic athletes. We have photographers. We have yoga. We have all these different things. So if you go to thepracticeapp.io, you'll be able to see what's there. We have a really famous young girl from Australia who you probably know, Olivia Kindamo.
Yeah.
Who's incredible. There's a few things on YouTube of her and I. My wife and I do a lot of guest artist things, and she couldn't do one of them Liechtenstein in Switzerland a couple of years ago. So there's some great stuff of me and Olivia doing some things online.
Amazing.
And so we've got scat singing, we've got regular singing, we've got trumpet, trombone, we got people from the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, Olympic athletes, all different people. And we have more stuff coming, art and philosophy and, geometry and,
it's really exciting. It really is.
It's really a fun thing. We're just in the middle of getting our next round of funding, and it's a big thing. And so to be honest, I didn't think we could get huge artists. I thought it would just be like, guys from LA, local people. And then I did the jazz cruise with James, and it was great to see him. And we started chatting, and I just took a chance. I go, hey, would you be interested? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, wow. So when he LA, we started shooting these episodes, and he's come back and he hung with us at our house. And some of the other ones that we have shot have been at our house. And it's funny because what you said about James, in one of his other episodes, he says, now what's funny is that this is called the Practice app. And I've often said, there's too much practicing happening in here right now. You got to do more playing. And so his philosophy is just about doing it and performing and learn while you do. And that's really our philosophy. And that worked great for us because James is sort of the poster child for the music side, even though we have other players. And so, it's a really fun thing, man. I'm really, really, really proud of this. Through this endeavor, I've made a lot of friends. I've learned a lot about practice and I've learned a lot about vestibular senses and how things work and how your frontal lobe works and how your memory works and muscle memory works and just these different things. I've also, something that's been exciting for me is I've gotten my film chops together. Awesome. So I've really enjoyed filming these things and learning about lighting. There's some really great stuff. Olympic athlete named Casey Patterson who's on there. And I'm really proud of some of those videos. It shows him at the Olympics. And through this, I ended up getting an opportunity last year to film the NFL draft. Oh, wow. And some ads for them, me and my team. And so, it's just blessings beyond what I ever thought was possible. So really, really cool thing. So so that's the Practice app. You can subscribe for, I think it's $12.99 a month per person. So then we have like a 2-pack and a 3-pack and all that kind of stuff. But it's really good. It's just great stuff. And James has got a bunch of play-alongs on there, and you can trade forwards with him, and fun stuff like that. So
that's amazing, man. It's super. As I said, it's super exciting, and I think everyone should go check it out. I will be putting a link in the YouTube description. So if you need to go, if you want a quick link, then just go down to YouTube and click on that and enjoy, because there's so many people on there. I was scooting through it myself. And you've even got harp. You got harp instructor. It's amazing.
A lot of cool stuff.
And it's one of those things where, as you said, you've learned so much, and it's like, but you who sits next to gurus yourself and maestros, and even you're still learning so much from these. There is so much to be learned out in the world.
Man, the more I want to say something about that. A few years ago, I got to produce this thing for the Super Bowl, and it was maybe one of the biggest learning moments in my life. Not just the session was great. It went well. It wasn't particularly difficult. I mean, it was a lot, it's like 100 people in the room, and but it wasn't, that wasn't the learning. The learning was the day after when I went, am I worthy of producing what I just did? Sure. Like, I'm good at what I do. Everybody's good at what they do. That's like, if you're working, it's because you have something special about you. Everyone's good at it. But I learned, I'm like, the fact that I did this spot, and it was the biggest spot in NBC Super Bowl history, that has nothing to do with how good I am. I got the spot because I was good and people liked me and they trusted me, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't speak to, Wayne playing lead on The Incredibles speaks to, on Incredibles 2, speaks to the fact that he's the greatest lead player to ever walk the earth. Me getting to sing on that movie doesn't speak to that I'm the greatest singer in LA, because I'm so not. I'm not even in the top 5,000, greatest singer. You know what I'm saying? And so I started learning, like, oh, your date book, your calendar does not necessarily reflect your skills. Your skills, the product, reflects your skills. And so that's kind of what it's been for me. I've been like, oh man, I got to get it together, because if somebody didn't know my reputation, if somebody didn't know anything, they go, hey, can I hear you play, blues in F or blues in E, or can I hear you play, the first page of the Brandenburg? That doesn't lie. Either you can do it or you can't. So if I, go up and I go, and I go, well, but it's just because I'm not warmed up, and but I did these things. Nobody cares how many TV shows you've done, or can you play? Can you do the product, whether it's filming, writing, singing, produce, whatever the things are that I claim on my list that I do, which bring me the most joy. Can you do them or can't you? Yeah. And so that was a big learning for me. And I'm loving the practice app because this has been a new like rejuvenation of my learning process. It's been awesome. So anybody that's interested, and by the way, I always want to make sure that, not that I have anything great to say, but if anybody out there that is interested or they just need help or want to have a conversation, I'm big on inspiration in life and just, being vulnerable, and you want to know, and it just, contact me on Facebook or whatever. And I'm happy to always have a conversation, make new friends, and let me hear what you're doing. And I'll tell you what I'm doing. And so I'm available to people if they want to know stuff.
I'll second that with Willie. He is an absolute legend. And that's how we got in contact. And obviously, that's how this happened. So honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do this if I didn't reach out and if you weren't so approachable, Willie. So I do thank you a lot for that.
I also want to say this: I would be remiss without giving you huge props and compliments for saying every single part of this has been incredibly patient and understanding and creative and accommodating. And I think it's really cool that you're doing this, man. It's Cheers, like mate. in your world, you're saying, like you said at the very beginning, hey, I love chatting with people. This is a strength of mine. I love asking questions. I love getting to know people. I love learning through this process. So I'm really grateful that you did this. This is really cool of you. And I'm honest to God, man, I'm really honored that you asked me to do it. Because I would think, why do people want to know about what I'm just a regular guy, doing this stuff. And so it's really fun to be a part of this stuff and people want to know what you do. So thank you. And I'm really happy for you that you're doing it. And congratulations on all your success too. So
thank you, Willie. It's an absolute pleasure. Can we just give a couple of quick questions for you, because a lot of our viewers love knowing this stuff, especially because when they turn on their tellies or their YouTubes or whatever and they see your face, they sort of say, oh, I wonder if he thinks this. So what is one of your, or a couple of some of your biggest inspirations that have turned you into the person or the player you are today?
There's a guy named Yuan Racy, for those of you that don't know LA history, and most people probably don't, unless you live here in LA. So if you look at like a guy named John Lewis, who's like the top, like classical-ish, commercial-ish guy, before him, it was Malcolm McNabb. Mm-hmm. And before Malcolm, it was Yuan Racy. I studied with Yuan early on, and Yuan unfortunately passed away about 8-9 years ago, something like that. And I had this great moment of learning when I was at his funeral. I got asked to write an arrangement. His favorite song that he used to sing to his wife was a song called "I Married an Angel." Wow. And it's just a very sweet song. Chet Baker sung it. It's not like a big standard, most people wouldn't know, but it's a good little song. And so I was asked to write this arrangement for Wayne to play with his band. So I was up there conducting this thing, and I'm like, man, there's a room full of 500 trumpet players, and I'm doing this thing, and and I'm thinking, me. I'm nervous. Is my arrangement going to sound good? Wayne's playing. I'm conducting, blah, blah, blah. And then I sat down after it. It was a beautiful experience. Wayne crushed it. And then the rest of the night, you know what they talked about? They talked about Yuan and his inspiration and his kindness and his family and his mental acuity and how he would just be able to overcome things emotionally. And I think he had polio or something. I don't remember exactly, but something going on, for a long time. And I was like, yeah, my arrangement is my trumpet play. This is not what it's about, because if I don't play trumpet for 2 weeks, I'm like a beginner and it takes me another week to get back in. If my son accidentally slams the door and cuts my lip, that's it. It's over. Yeah. If I go in the ocean and something happens to my ear, that's my career's over. I'm done. So it's not about that. It's about being genuinely kind. Yeah. And that, I would have to say, was one of the biggest learning experiences in my whole life about what life is about.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, as a young up and comer, when you see these big guys above you and you're trying to get there, you see it as that. It's not that. It's about love and kindness and all those things. And so I try to be those things, and we've all made our fair share of mistakes. Yeah. But that's where I'm at.
In the end, we are molding the next generations, and we always got to keep that in our mind. So definitely, it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about music-wise? So, in other words, is there a CD or an album that transformed your playing?
Only about 1,000 of them. We are a walking, talking encyclopedia of everything we've heard. I'm a huge fan of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm a huge fan of Jerry Hay. To me, Jerry Hay, the horn writer, there's nobody else. Like, he's the guy. Yeah. It's Jerry Hay and then everybody else, right?
I'll tell you what, Tom Walsh is getting close, though.
Oh, I'm just talking historically. Yeah. Tom Walsh is one of my favorite horn writers, man.
He's a legend.
Guy, and I love Tom. Tom and I, Tom has helped me on a few projects, do some things.
Has he? Yeah.
He's great at Melodyne, and he's helped me with some things. And anyway, I love Tom. Yeah. I mean, gosh, that's a whole nother 5-hour podcast that we could do just about those things. But yeah, I mean, Clifford with Strings. There's a trumpet named Don Clark who nobody knows. Check this out. He's a copy machine repairman. And he's a guy that lives in LA. And for years on a swing band called the Bill Elliott Swing Orchestra, it was me, Wayne, and Don. And Don played all of the solos.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he like Roy Eldridge, and just unbelievable. So he never practiced. Would go a month without playing. I just played a New Year's gig with him. He hadn't played since March.
No way.
And he sounded phenomenal. So I mean, again, we're walking, talking encyclopedias. Yeah. If you look, I'm going to show you really quick a picture of my studio. Check this out.
Oh yeah.
So I've got the Beatles. I've got
Louis himself.
And I've got over here.
Oh wow.
You can't see. There's a picture of Sinatra and Elvis. And I'm a huge fan of both Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley. And so I count myself very blessed because my parents listened to a lot of great music and doo-wop and 50s and Louis Prima and obviously everything Freddie Hubbard and Clifford Brown and all these things. But man, it's like your personality. Like, how do you say who affected your personality? Well, my 8th grade girlfriend, or the fight that I got into when I was in 6th grade, or the cereal that I ate when I was in high school. It's like, it's all in there. But my encouragement is to listen to everything, because you'll find something that resonates with you, and that natural vibration of what you dig will open up your personality. It's just one of those things. My son found football. My daughter found student government. My other son found this. My other son found, it's like you stumble across something, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this.
Yeah. And I mean, in the end, I think a lot of people, especially young guys out there, if you are watching, don't be afraid. Once you get it, hold on to it and approach these people. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is they might not see your email for a while and you'll get a late reply or something. But if you want a question, or you got an, you got a question or whatever, just go and ask. Go talk to people. So
yes, ask.
But anyway, and I'll finish with a question of, because music is yes, it's serious, it's a serious business, but most of the time it's not when you're comfortable. I mean, you must be have played with these guys countless thousands of gigs and all the rest of it. Is there one moment that really stands out as just a great story or a funny story that the listeners would love to hear?
If there are a million moments, there are a million moments, but I have to say, and one of the funniest moments I've ever had was there's a phenomenal trumpet player who now teaches at University of Arizona. His name is Chad Shootman, trumpet player.
Oh yeah.
And the Phat band, you have probably seen the YouTube. Oh. We were playing, and his pants fell down. He was not trying. He didn't wear a belt, and he's kind of a bigger gentleman. Lovely guy, and he's one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. I don't know how, but we made it through the rest of the tune. It was a tune called Back Row Politics, which, if you don't know the Big Phat Band, it's a it's a trumpet feature where we stand out front, we all trade solos, and it's fun, and it's like a New Orleans country, and there's a part where the flutes take over in the middle. And Chad, we used to do this bit where we would make fun of the flutes. We'd be like this and do this thing. But Chad kind of took it to another level, and he's doing like the Civil War flute thing where he's dragging his feet across, and he's just kind of being silly like we always used to do. And somehow he said that as he started walking, he didn't even feel it, but his pants started coming down, and he's got his trumpet like this, pretending to be a flute, and he's kind of doing this, like being funny. And he said that all of a sudden he felt wind, and he looked down, and his pants are like almost to his knees. There's a YouTube of it, and the first thing I thought, because we were at like a university or a high school or something, I forget, and the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, they're gonna stop the concert,
yeah.
We're gonna get asked to leave, and we're gonna be like sex offenders, like. And I turn around, and Gordan is like at the piano, and he's crying. Like the whole saxophone section is like, and we're all in disbelief that it's happening. And I think everybody kind of felt the same, like, this is bad, but it's funny as hell, And then as it went on, he pulled up his, like, we realized it when the audience is crying and it's funny. And then after all the solos and everything, we get to the soli, and I finally kind of calmed down, and then it comes to me how damn funny this thing is. And I bust up through my trumpet, and everyone starts cracking, and then this tune is like, we better finish this tune because it's gonna, crash and burn,
Yeah.
And it was one of the funniest moments I've ever had in any kind of anything, You don't have moments like that. Like I've done American Idol and The Voice, and there's not really there's scary moments, on live TV, but live gigs where things can be loose and fun, man, is where stuff like that happens, and that is by far the funniest thing that I've ever experienced.
I think it was probably because obviously, you can plan as much as you do. And in back row politics, you guys, you have your little things, you move and you play around with each other's music and you do all your thing. You never thought that was going to happen. Like
I'm like, this guy's pants came down. Like,
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, Willie, all I can say is thanks so much for joining us. I've taken enough of your time. Go enjoy it with your family. Thanks so much for everything, for giving up your time, for your information. And yeah, I honestly can't thank you enough. You're a wonderful guy, a wonderful trumpet player, and
Thank you so much.
I hope the world gives you everything that you deserve. And I hope when everything picks up, life goes back to how it should be. So
thank you for having me on. God bless you all out there. Stay safe and social distanced and all the things that we're supposed to be doing, and be safe out there. And thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. And to everyone else out there, I'll be back next week, and I will tell you who I'm going to have. I'm actually going to have the bass trombone extraordinaire Mark Frost from the UK. He is incredible. The week after that, I'll be having Alan Vazzuti. So that'll be a great chat as well. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining in. As Willie said, stay safe and get in that practice room and be inspired. Love your work. Cheers.